Okay, excellent, thank you. This is our second Fruit Luck Group of the Year, or Glasgow Fruitarian Group, whatever you want to call it. And today we're doing a little talk on the beginner's guide to our raw vegan diet. We're just setting up the camera, should be okay. I'll just change it a little bit. Okay, so I think the purpose of going through this is a lot of us probably already know a lot of this stuff already about the raw vegan diet and how to do it or how to start off, but it's always worth going through it again, but then we can share all our own stories about it, because I'm sure a lot of you have had the same experiences. And that's the thing, I've seen so many people do the same mistakes and make the same mistakes. So part of this video is obviously for people out there who are going to make some of these mistakes. And obviously I made all these mistakes as well, and that's why I know, so well all of these things that I'm going to talk about. So the first thing that I found, so I'm going to go through it's a beginner's guide, I'm going to go through the mistakes, and then I'm going to go through some steps to success, hopefully, the raw vegan diet. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is a mistake is basing the raw food diet on either fat or vegetables. So a lot of people, they change from a cooked food to a raw food diet, and they've never learned anything about it. They just think about this idea of raw and eating anything raw, and they want to try and replicate a lot of the flavours and the experiences that they had on a cooked food diet. And they do that by eating a lot of fat, they do that by using vegetables, maybe dried vegetables, and so on. And you can make all sorts of dishes with that kind of replicate the flavours of a cooked food diet. But there's two major problems with that. The first one is that vegetables, there's not enough calories in vegetables for us to really thrive on a daily basis, so we can't base our diet on vegetables like lettuce and things like that. And the second thing with fats, we can't live healthfully if we're living on fat. It's just not the preferred fuel source of our body. It's not what our body's designed really to thrive on. But a lot of people do that, and I made that mistake myself, where when I was starting off in this diet, I just decided I'm going to go raw, and I go to the shop and I get a bag of vegetables, and I'd never really eaten vegetables much in my life, and so I just decided, I'm going to try and eat vegetables, and I really felt like this is great. I'm like a gorilla. I'm eating all these, I'm chewing and chewing and chewing for hours and hours, and I thought that was great, and I did feel great. And if you just transition to any kind of raw diet, you usually do feel a big change at the beginning. But I ran out of energy after a few days trying to do that, and not eating lots of fruit and kind of not eating much else really. Just really crashed and had to go back to eating something else. So that's something that a lot of people have experienced, and it goes back to the second point, which is not eating enough fruit, which is another big mistake people make. And people actually make that mistake sometimes for years and years and years into doing a raw diet. And once again, we've all been taught a diet that is completely different to the raw diet, and therefore none of us have really been trained, or none of us have practiced or learned how to eat a lot of fruit. And it takes time and it takes practice to actually do that. For a lot of people it doesn't seem right at first, but it is something you have to sort of learn to do. And when you do learn to do it, it's very enjoyable to eat a lot of fruit. But not eating enough fruit is a mistake that a lot of people make, and once again it leads to you falling off the raw vegan diet. The third little mistake I see, is that people get too sidetracked or concerned with things that aren't so important. So they start to think about herbs, they think about flushes and cleanses and juice cleanses. They might get into things like urine therapy, they might start to take certain types of alternative medicines to get rid of parasites. There's so many different things that a person might kind of get distracted by or sidetracked by, and none of these actually help you to maintain a raw vegan diet. And for me, I think that the diet is more powerful in itself than any of these things short term, because really it takes a long time for the body to heal. It takes a long time for the body to recover from any kind of problems that you've got. So I think that ties in with the last little mistake, which is not giving enough time to the diet, and people try it for a short period of time, they're not getting the results they're maybe looking for, and they stop doing it. And for me, it took quite a while. I mean, I went through a little honeymoon phase where you give up all the cooked food or the junk food or whatever it was you were eating. You give that all up, you feel really good for a while. In fact, you feel amazing for a while, and then after that, you might start to feel that becomes normal in a sense, and then you might feel not so great for a while. You might have times where you feel fatigue, you might have times where you just aren't feeling right in certain ways, and I think that that could be a number of things. When you come to a raw vegan diet, you're becoming much more aware of your needs and your health and how you feel. You're much more aware, so you're not kind of I don't know if masking is the right word, but you're not covering up all these problems with junk food eating and suppressing all your kind of feelings with food. So you become much more aware of how you're feeling. So if you're tired and you do a raw vegan diet, you're not drinking coffee and tea, so you feel the tiredness rather than stimulating yourself out of that tiredness. So you really feel tired if you're doing a raw diet and you don't sleep enough for a few days. And it's the same with other things. So you need to give yourself time to do it, time to successfully get the habit going, and time for your body to get used to it and your body to build its health back. So now I'll just go through about 7 little tips that I think are little strategies or whatever for success. The first one ties in with what we've been saying. For success in a raw vegan diet, it needs to be a fruit-based diet. You must try and get as much enough calories from fruit, and that's quite simple to do, but it takes some time to learn to do that. The second thing I think is to pick a staple fruit. So pick a particular fruit that you like, that you can get a lot of, that you have easy access to, and just decide, right, that's going to be the bulk of my diet, or it could be 2 fruits or 3. But if you make that decision, then you're always going to have that consistently. And in almost every other diet in history, people have had a staple food, whether that was bread or rice or pasta or whatever it was. They had a staple, and I think that that's quite a good way to go, because we don't have like a forest around us that's just producing different fruit all the time. So it's a good idea to have a staple fruit, I think. And for me, that's bananas. So if I've got enough bananas, I know I can always thrive in this diet. And I can eat anything else I want as well. I don't restrict that. But if I've got the bananas there, I know that if I run out of other things, I've still got the bananas there. I would say at first, it's a good idea to avoid what's called raw gourmet, which is complex, dehydrated sometimes dishes that are raw dishes. They are kind of there to replicate cooked food, and sometimes they really do replicate cooked food, and they sometimes taste better, to be honest. I think that when you're starting off, it's worthwhile to avoid that for a little while. It's just to get into the habit of getting away from the flavours of cooked food, because I think if you start eating raw gourmet food really quickly, you'll be more likely to, it'll remind you of the flavours of your previous diet, and you'll maybe go back to that. Always have a lot of fruit is my next little tip. Always have lots and lots of fruit. It's good to buy in bulk. It's probably essential to buy in bulk, really. And the Glasgow Fruit Market at Blockhair, you can get fruit really cheap there as well, which is really great. So buying in bulk is really important. Always having lots of fruit, that really helps out. Another little tip, eating enough early on in the day. So making sure that you it's very easy to decide not to eat anything in the morning, because a lot of people don't feel hungry in the morning or lunchtime, whatever. But the problem is, if you don't eat enough early on, you're more likely to eat anything else later on. So if you make a decision to eat enough fruit earlier on, later on in the day, you won't feel those cravings for other things so strongly. And there was a thing called raw till 4, which was like, probably still now, pretty popular diet. And the idea is people ate raw food till about 4 p.m. and then ate cooked food after that, vegan usually. But it kind of makes sense, because that's around about the time that people actually start to crave something else if they're not eating enough fruit or eating enough raw food. So it kind of makes sense that later on in the day you start to crave something else. The first 6 months I went raw, I always made sure I often made a smoothie the night before, so I always knew I had something when I was going to work. And if I had that, then I knew I'd be fine the rest of the day and I wouldn't get the same cravings. So I think that's an important point. Number 6, simply eat as much vegetables as you care for. That's quite a simple one, and by vegetables we really mean tender leafy greens like lettuce, different types of lettuce. Some people say, oh, iceberg lettuce isn't very nutritious, but it doesn't really matter. Like it's still much better than all the other food that most people are eating. So I don't know if iceberg lettuce is not as good as romaine or something, but it doesn't really matter that much. I think that basically that's one of the main vegetables I eat is actually iceberg lettuce. So I'm not so worried about that. And as much vegetables as you like, as much salad as you like. There are people that eat like a fruitarian diet where they don't eat any vegetables, and I think actually that's fine as well. I think people can do that for quite a long period of time. Some people say that there's a problem with that, but I've met too many people that do that to be too worried about it myself. So but at the same time, they're eating things that some people don't call vegetables, like tomatoes and avocados. And lastly, just don't eat too much fat. That's just tying in with everything. If you eat lots and lots of fat, you will feel not as good, basically. And something that I learned when I've been experimenting with this diet is that if you had to make a choice long term, you would be better off doing a low-fat cooked diet than a high-fat raw diet, like a very high-fat raw diet, because I think just when you have all that fat going into your bloodstream, it just affects your mood, it affects how you feel. But luckily we don't have to make that choice, so I'll always choose for like a low fat or high carb raw vegan diet. So that's basically everything I went through. The one thing I probably didn't mention was the people get concerned about nutritional deficiencies and things like that, and that's a bit of a concern for people. And it's just another thing that I've just met too many people that aren't that worried about supplements and things like that, and they've been doing a vegan diet or a raw vegan diet for a long time, and they either don't supplement or they supplement rarely, or they do it when they feel they need it, or they'll get tested and they'll do it then. But too many people are getting worried like from the get-go. Like they start to look into this, they want to start looking for they get worried about not having enough of whatever nutrition, and they start to get too focused on this supplement and that supplement. And for many people, that, to me, I've seen many people who that hasn't helped them with this diet. That's made them go away from the diet, because they start to get a little bit paranoid, and whenever they're not feeling good, they think it must be a nutritional deficiency or an insufficiency, whatever you want to call it. And I've seen loads and loads of people that get into that mindset, and I think it's a little bit, I don't think it's the right mindset. And there's too many people that go to the doctor and they're almost sure that they've got something wrong with them, and the doctor gives them a test and the doctor says you're fine, there's nothing really wrong, right? But the person is still looking for someone to validate their belief that they've got some kind of deficiency or some problem with them. So I've had friends that they claim that they've been doing a particular diet, whether it's raw or vegan or not, and they believe they're having all these problems despite doing the diet. And then you walk past them someday and they're in a restaurant eating something completely different to what they've said that they were eating. You know, I've seen that happen lots. And their doctor said that they're fine, but because their mother or father or someone had a particular problem, they become quite worried that they've got that issue as well. And they look for someone to tell them that they've got a deficiency or something. So there's lots of, I mean, I had something happen today where I went for a massage, and this Chinese kind of herbalist guy was telling me, oh, you've got toxins in your body, you need to have this and that. And there's so many people in alternative medicine who will tell you that you're not well, and they will sell you supplements, herbs, and all these things. And it's not that these things don't have some validity to it. Some of them do. But like, how did that guy know from just giving me a massage that I've got toxins in my body and that I need to have Chinese herbs? You know, it's just totally random. He's just made that up, essentially, and it's like a business model. So I understand that, but so I worry about that, and I just think people need to focus on the fruit, focus on staying on a fruit-based diet, raw vegan diet, and then working on the other parts of life. Enjoying your life, being happy, being around good people, which is what this group's all about, pursuing your dreams and goals, and laughing and being, and all these good things. Like, focus on those things rather than thinking, okay, I'm not feeling good because of the diet. Maybe it's because of stress, maybe it's lack of sleep, maybe it's 100 other things. So that's my little presentation, and that's the beginner's guide to a raw vegan diet in a nutshell. So thanks a lot for listening, thanks a lot for watching. If you're watching the video, we're going to have a little private discussion now which you cannot play a part of, but you need to come to the group next time. We're here at the In the Moment Yoga Centre. There's a crowd of about a couple of hundred people here that I'm not going to show you, but yeah, please come to the next one, meetup.com/Glasgow Fruitarian. Check that out. Okay, bye.